of Doom. Hello and welcome back to another
Questions of Doom.
In this series, as ever, I attempt to answer questions that you send my way using the archaeosoup@gmail.com email address, as displayed on the YouTube channel homepage, but as you'll also see at the end of this video. In answering these questions by video, it is my hope that the answer is not only useful to the person who's asked the question, but also anyone else out there who may be wondering the same thing. Now, today's question is not so much a question as an amalgamation, a synthesis, a coming together of various questions along a very similar theme. And essentially it's an FAQ. It's a series of frequently asked questions surrounding essays and essay writing, in particular when one is in university studying archaeology. Usually these questions have come from first years, at least I hope they're all first years. I figured it was worthwhile bringing them together and bringing them to your attention so that you could possibly peruse these if you have similar questions yourself. So first of all, one of the biggest questions that I get asked is, Mr. Soup, yes, I say, what is the best and minimum number of sources for an essay? And my response is always, what? Excuse me? Because it's not, for me, that's not really a question that makes much sense. Now let me explain. First of all, I know that some universities, they do say, well, for an essay you need to have a minimum of 5, 6, 10 sources in your bibliography at the end, books that you've referred to help you write the essay. But that's not guidance for how to write the essay. That's just simply them making sure that you do at least some reading, as it were. The best number of sources for an essay is the number of sources it requires to back up the argument that you're making. That may be much more, maybe double, God forbid, the minimum which is required of you. But in some cases it may actually even be a little bit fewer, a little bit less, in which case, yes, okay, you might have to do some padding out to meet that minimum number, or you could just stand by your argument and make the case. The point is, it's all about the quality of the research that you've done and how it props up the argument that you're making. With that in mind, it's a really, really good idea to keep a list of the books and the papers in journals or whatever that you've read. Now, for my part, I actually kept a very detailed series of notes on books which I've read. I took roughly an A4 sheet of notes per thing. If it's an article or a book, maybe a bit more than one A4 sheet, and then actually catalogue that from in a little notebook that I had alongside these notes. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, but I found that extremely useful when I was in uni, because it meant that I could easily dip back into those notes. Essentially, I could easily dip back into it's almost like a little sort of reading summary, a little portion of my brain which I'd taken out and put onto a shelf somewhere. And then that was really good actually for finding sources for essays. So if you think, oh, what was that? Where did I read that? Then you can just go through, find the key word in your notebook, find the article by number or whatever, pull out the summary that you've written and go, okay, excellent, and then make a note of that reference. So keeping a list is really useful, but also actually I kept an even more specific list in the run-up to my dissertation. Anything that I read in the 2 years running up to handing it in, which was useful, I actually kept in this little red notebook, which was actually separated chapter by chapter. So for each chapter, a useful reference, if I found one, would go in that notebook, and that was invaluable. Absolutely invaluable. That's precisely, I suppose, what I'm getting at, is it is invaluable, and you can't really put a value on a source. You can't really put a source value on an essay. It's all about the usefulness of what you've been reading and its pertinence to the subject at hand. So I wouldn't get into the habit. I would try not to get into the habit of thinking, how little can I read? How few books can I read to make this essay pass the mustard? Because, well, why are you bothering? To be honest, why are you bothering to do that? Surely it's much better to go where your interests take you, to read maybe there's a couple of recommended reading list items which you've been given by the lecturers, and then follow those up, who they've been referencing, and then maybe you'll find something, a little gem which you can put into your essay and go like a sort of academic mic drop, based upon just reading where your interests take you, and also, as I say, keeping good notes. Now, a second thing which people tend to ask about is style of writing. Mr. Soup, yes, I ask, what is a good style for writing an essay? And my answer is always, your own style. And I don't mean that in like a slightly naff, cop-out, Zen grasshopper kind of way. I mean that in a way of in so much as you will find your own style if you've been doing enough academic reading. There are certain conventions that you don't do. For example, you don't refer to yourself. Usually you don't go, my opinion is, you might at a push say, the opinion of this author is. Things like that. These are academic conventions in papers. But how you go about, say, for example, making an argument, proving a point, will be very much down to the topic at hand, how you've been thinking about that topic, and ultimately what's occurred to you because of that thinking. I remember one essay in particular which I wrote about the similarities of technologies through time in terms of lithics, but also the divergent and at times convergent nature of the cultural evolution behind them. It was a bit of a long-winded question, but I remember getting feedback on that essay saying that it had been an eccentric and inimitable style. Now, I wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not, but basically what I was being told was that I'd found a unique way of making the point. I got a very good mark for the essay, but I found the way of making the point because of how I'd been thinking about it. So I suppose the style will come, your style will come from various places, not least from how you think. I would say that one key thing, though, is to avoid jargon. Wherever possible, don't use jargon, because people can hide a great many sins behind jargon. They really can. You can be the most ignorant person in the world, but still know how to say something like, mass spectroscopy. Ironically enough, I can't say it. Mass. It's first thing in the morning, sorry folks. You'd be able to say something like ground penetrating radar, there you go. And be able to hide the fact that you don't really know what's going on in the background. Jargon can hide a lack of knowledge. The best way to demonstrate that you have knowledge is actually to use words and language which clearly, concisely explain the topic and a notion, almost in a way that you would to someone who knew nothing about a topic. I remember a professor of mine once saying, "I want you to write as though I'm a baby," and I found that a bit disturbing. But crucially, what she was getting at in this instance was that she wanted to hear that I knew what I was talking about, because I could explain it in a way which was accessible. So try and avoid the use of jargon. It's pointless. It gets in the way. It gums up your essay, and frankly, also often jargon is very wordy, so it'll also eat up valuable words which you need in order to prove your point. And finally, we often get comments on Archaeosoup videos asking for our references, saying, "That's a very good point you made there. Can I have the reference, please?" And my answer is often, not to respond, or more to the point, sometimes to say no. Now, the reason why I say no in terms of giving references to research that I've done, or that we've done, for example, the rest of the team, is because Archaeosoup is not here to be a cheat sheet for writing essays. I can't tell you how often I get emails begging for, where's the reference for Hodder saying this or whatever, and I don't give out the reference. Now, that's not me being a complete arse. That's actually me trying to encourage people to do research themselves. I've given you enough there to hopefully track it down. You know the author, you know probably roughly what he's talking about, and maybe even when he's talking about it, or she's talking about it. Obviously, Ian Hodder is a he. I do know that. But no matter the author, I try and sort of give you enough to go on if I'm quoting a particular person's ideas. But I don't give out references because it's down to you, especially if you're in uni, to do the research. It's not down to other people to do it for you. ArchaeoSoup is here to educate and inspire. It is here to be as accurate as we can be. So almost always our stuff is very well researched. Sometimes we've tripped up here and there, but I think for the most part, we've got like a 98% hit rate on good research and accurate statements about the past, and also about archaeologists and their research. But I firmly believe, not only having been a student, and indeed to a certain extent I still am a student of archaeology, but also as well having been through the process now of lecturing and consulting on marking of essays, for example, or other submissions. It has to come from the student. It can't come from someone else. Otherwise, you run the risk of, at best, you just haven't learned anything. At worst, you've plagiarized someone else's ideas. And so, if we were just to hand out all our references, then basically we're not helping you. You need to do the research yourself. If you find an interesting idea, then sure, we'll help you to think about it, and we'll even converse with you about it, but we're not going to do your research for you. That said, though, there are certain opportunities, certain places and times when we talk about a very particular moment, maybe like a news article or a particular journal article, when we will give you the reference in the video description, a link often to a PDF or something. But for the most part, don't ask, because we will not give up our sources, damn it, he says, like a old style newspaper reporter. Because I think there's something important about that academic integrity, and more to the point, that academic journey. The fact is, you're meant to discover this stuff for yourself, as much as you are meant to initially hear about it through talking with friends, colleagues, and also through watching our videos. So don't ask, because we're not going to give you, for example, the key to my library. That's not what we're here for. But we are here to help you in other ways. So if you have any questions, as with this series, for example, do ask. If you want to know a little bit more about where you might find more information, then do ask. But don't ask us to give you chapter and verse, because we won't. There you go, guys. Those are the 3 most frequently asked questions that I get linked with essays and essay writing. Basically, it's about sources, references, and style. That's really what all this boils down to, and hopefully this has been useful for you. If you have any additional questions, please do comment below. Please do send them in to the email address that you're about to see. And of course, if you have any comments, please do comment below as well. We'd all love to read and also learn from one another, as always, in that sense. Anyway, guys, hopefully this has been useful. Hopefully this has answered those questions, and hopefully I'll be able to refer people to this video so that I don't have to keep on repeating myself in the future. As ever, until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.